What's up, everybody? You have landed on another episode of Critical Mess, the podcast where three chums in the ad business talk about movies that critics and audiences just don't agree on. So this is episode number 7. I'm Nick Honeywell. I'm here with a couple of dudes. One of them's named Griswold. He's also known as Andrew. The other one is named Brian McCullough. We've, of course, got producer Ben. Gentlemen, let the people know you're here.
Hey, this is Brian. Last year, I watched every single James Bond movie in chronological order, and the objectively best movie is GoldenEye.
Very nice. This is Andrew or Grizz. I'm ready to talk shit on this film, so let's do it.
Yeah, we're going to get into that. But before we get into this week's movie, we're going to do our icebreaker.
Oh, yeah.
So this week's icebreaker, guys, is which movie has the best soundtrack? And this could be, it could be best as in like best as a, once again from kind of a best for the movie, like the music's just amazing, or best as in it's just your favorite. It's the shit you jam to,
Ooh.
It has to be one movie. It can't be a trilogy, right?
You can go. We can keep it loose. We can go the trilogy if you want.
Well, shit. And that's not fair to every other movie. That's just one movie, though.
Well, I guess that's true.
Okay. Yeah, I'm being too.
How about I'll start?
You deadlocked me. Yeah. What's your answer?
I'll start to give you guys a second here. So I'm gonna go with Drive. I think Drive has one of the best soundtracks of all time. Objectively, as objectively as I can be. Cliff Martinez, absolute beast. He is, if you don't know, the drummer for the Red Hot Chili Peppers and a retro synthwave monster. And I have always loved that movie, but I think really what makes a lot of that movie is just the soundtrack is fucking awesome. So that is my answer. That's
a great answer. That first song that plays when they're kind of panning over the city after the drive. I mean, I don't know the name of it, but I
believe that's isn't Night Call the first, but
yeah,
Kavinsky
there it
the
is.
first track. Yeah, perfect.
Starts
song.
there, and then it just gets even better. I'm gonna go single movie, even though it's part of a trilogy. I'm gonna go Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Has the most thematic motif tracks in it that I just love every single one of them. And there's enough new stuff in that one from the first two to where it's not a rehash.
Oh man, this is tough. I don't listen to the music often, but I have always gone back and listened to this soundtrack repeatedly and remixes of it. So the Tron Legacy soundtrack. If you've not listened to it, the movie was meh. I thought it was fun, but it was just kind of a letdown. But the soundtrack is well beyond what the movie makes up for. So I think it's just stunning.
Damn,
so
you guys went
Daft Punk.
You guys went electronic. I like it.
Yeah.
I like your style.
Yeah, good answers. Good answers,
I'm
guys.
just a boomer.
All right. So, okay. Before we go any further, I want to kind of clarify something here. And that is, what do we mean by movies that critics and audiences don't agree on? Our one listener asked us that. So here's what we mean, generally speaking, for clarity. We're talking about movies that on Rotten Tomatoes have a 20% or higher disparity between the overall critical reception and audience reception. So if it's a movie we really want to talk about, we might cheat that 20% a little bit, but that's kind of the general rule. So now you know, listener.
Wait, and also, in addition to that, it can't be like a 70 and a 90.
Right, that's a great point. Yeah, it must be fresh and rotten.
Which the threshold is 60%?
Correct. So 60% is the threshold.
So one of them has to be below 60, the other above.
Okay. Yeah, great point.
Correct.
Yep. Okay, before we jump into the movie this week, one more thing, caveat, spoilers, lots of them, you've been warned. So now that is all out of the way, tonight we are talking about the classic buddy comedy, Twilight. That's at least how I'm going to bucket it, guys, here genre-wise.
It's definitely not a vampire movie.
It's not a lot of things. But very similar to Tommy Boy in a lot of respects. So okay, why are we talking about Twilight? I really have no fucking idea, but we are talking about it. And I guess it's because critics gave it actually I'd say a kind of a surprisingly high 49%, and audiences gave it 72% on Rotten Tomatoes. So falls squarely within our criteria for the show. The movie stars Kristen Stewart, Robert Pattinson, Billy Burke, Peter Facinelli, a young Anna Kendrick. So it's a pretty, well, these days would be considered a pretty stacked cast. I guess Peter Facinelli is not really in high demand anymore.
That young Anna Kendrick looks the exact same age today as she did then.
True. Facts. This film came out in 2008. It was directed by Catherine Hardwicke. It made a fuck ton of money. Let's get into it. So first, I think the place to start here, gentlemen, is, what was our, first exposure to this movie? When did you first see it? And I guess what were your kind of preconceptions about the movie going in?
Oh, man. Okay, so early on, I think my wife and sister-in-law convinced me to watch this soon after it came out, after it went on DVD or whatever, streaming or something like that. So I watched it by myself after they convinced me to do it at my wife's house back in the day, her parents' house, and watched it by myself, and I could not believe how terrible this film was back then. Can't believe it got made, and the hype behind it was pretty real at the time. I mean, a lot of people were talking about this movie, obviously based on the books, but it had a weird low budget of $37 million, which is beyond low, and I mean, even then it was low.
You can tell when you watch the movie.
Yes, you can tell, but I think it's odd because the book came out in 2005. This came out in 2008. So this was quickly made after the virality of that book coming out. So,
yeah, same. Sister-in-law. We went on a family vacation right when it came out over to Arizona, and it must have been over a year after it came out or something, because she had it on DVD, and she is the biggest Twilight fan I've ever met, and so she's like, we have to watch this, and we were in a cabin in the middle of the woods, and I had nothing else to do, so I watched it. And it actually wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I enjoyed it to a certain extent, or at least maybe I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. And then never watched it again after that. Never watched any of the sequels until a week ago.
So I had no idea what a big deal this movie was. I just didn't know.
It was huge.
Yeah, there was no one in my life that was clamoring about this movie when it
was like
came
as
out,
big as Harry Potter.
Right, yeah. I see that now, but I legitimately did not know that just because I didn't know anyone that was really into it.
You didn't have a sister-in-law.
Correct.
how did both of our sister-in-laws get us into this film?
Because they're
Big
females.
Twilight fans, yeah.
Because Robert Pattinson.
Oh, yeah. He is pretty dreamy. So he's our Batman now. So
He's fucking awesome, Batman.
So I first saw this movie a few nights ago and didn't have much of any expectation. I admittedly expected not to like it. It's not for me, but yeah, I was jumping in pretty cold. So okay, now that we've got a little background about our history with this lovely film, I think we need to rate it. Grizz, give us a number out of 100. How you feeling, and why are you rating it that way?
Why am I rating it? Well, I have to rate it.
We know you have to rate it. I'm sorry about that. I said, why are you rating it that way?
I'm going. I thought about this, so I give it a 31 out of 100.
Oh, we were so close.
It feels high still.
We almost did it.
But it had a couple, I guess, I don't know, redeeming pieces in it, but it was really a struggle to go that high. So 31 out of 100 is my full review. So
33, man. Oh man, we all
close.
what did we decide what we would do if we ever came in with the exact same rating?
Glasses of whatever we're
drinking.
we
just waterfall.
Absolutely. If one of us or two of us come with the same answer, we got to.
Well, our sponsor 1792 would disappear pretty quick if that happened. But yeah, I'm giving it a 33. I did not hate the movie. I will say I think if this movie was a standalone by itself with no sequels, just a campy, just like cult hit, like just that's it. For some reason, I think I would have given it a higher rating, but because it's part of this massive franchise, and it was, I don't know if it's the contrarian in me, but that detracts a little bit from it. And then obviously we'll go through the specific reasons why I didn't like it, but yeah, 33, not good, not terrible.
Shout out to 1792. Holler at us. So I just want to remind everybody you're listening to Critical Mess, and we are talking about Twilight tonight. My rating for this film is going to be a 54. That's probably a little higher than y'all might have been expecting. And I actually was going to rate this movie a lot lower until I thought about it a little bit more. And I actually kind of enjoyed watching this movie. A sick part of me kind of enjoyed it. Kind of, just like when you just watch something that's it's just kind of dirty. Feels wrong, but it feels right.
Like Bad Boys 2.
Yeah, there's something there. Yeah, there's a bit
Is
of a
it
parallel
the
there.
100-year-old dating the 16-year-old aspect, or is it something else?
No, that's not it. I mean, to be fair, he looked great for his age. So,
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
literally sparkling. So, yeah. So I'm going with the 54. I did see some things to enjoy in this movie. Obviously, this movie was a piece of shit from a critical perspective. I think to put it bluntly.
Speaking of that, do you want to kind of talk about how we've come up, what our ratings entail? I guess
I do. I absolutely do. So when we rate these movies out of 100, our ratings are sort of combining the personal enjoyment we got from the movie with the critical quality that we saw in the movie. And clearly for me, the personal enjoyment I got from this movie is helping the score trend up, because the critical quality of this film is quite low, and it's very difficult, I think, to argue otherwise. Although we're going to get into a couple things a little later that I actually thought this film did well from a critical standpoint.
Yeah, and I'll say, I think, not to get too granular, but my sort of critical rating probably would have been 10 or 15 points lower. So the enjoyability is really what my rating is hanging on, most of it. Probably more than you.
I think it's fair to say a lot of that's unintentional. But a little bit was intentional. I'll throw out a bone.
Yeah.
All right. So let's just let's get right into it. About the disparity here. So I want to hear from you two. Why do critics and audiences, Grizz and Brian, not agree on this movie in your opinion?
We've talked about this a lot with other movies and gotten into it. To be honest, I think it really boils down to one simple answer here, and I don't even think it's very complicated. I think it's the fact that the audience for this movie were 15-year-old girls, and they all just were entranced by Robert Pattinson, and they all are in love with him, and that equals a 5 out of 5 rating. I think that when you read a lot of the audience ratings, they're all in on the unconditional love, which there's no unconditional love in this movie. I don't know where they're getting that phrase from. But yeah, it's just the dreamy, hot Robert Pattinson and just the whole seductiveness of the vampire sort of lore. That and that alone are what I'm seeing in these audience ratings. I'm not seeing anything about like performance, about, dialogue, any of that kind of stuff. I'm seeing literally, this is a love story, and I love Robert Pattinson. And then critics, of course, don't have that skew, so they're just looking at it and going, this movie is just like either subpar or average. I hate to make it too simplistic, and by all means, add any nuance to that if you want.
Yeah, I have to. I mean, I already said this earlier, but I think it definitely comes down to the explosion of the book series as well, just really recently before the movie even came out. So I think that being like a bestseller and exploding off shelves in the teen market. I mean, the book was, from what I understand, was written for young audiences, so preteen to teen. It was very simplistic, I guess. I mean, you can tell which lines from the movie were from the book as they say them out loud, because they used words that were much larger than you would imagine for this dialogue. But I think it did have to do with some of that too, just how well it built up through the book series. And then 3 years later, obviously, I mean, they must have gone into production on this so fast to make this within 3 years, or release it within 3 years of the book coming out. So that's impressive. So
yeah, I agree with both of you. I think this movie clearly has a sort of just an undeniable and primal appeal to teen girls. This dreamy, dangerous boy that can kill you at any moment or save you at any moment, who really wants to kill you, but he's just trying so hard not to. That noble bastard.
And I get it. Like, I'm not poo-pooing that. Like that,
I get it too. Yeah,
I totally understand that. I'll read from somebody named Noor Tamer. They gave it a 5 out of 5 on Google reviews, and 88 people upvoted this, so I'll read this one. I love Twilight in a way that I've never loved a film in my entire life. The story is just brilliant. The love in this story between two people is just indescribable. I don't think this is a love story. I'm just going to drop that and just let it hang. Okay? I don't think it's a love story. I don't see it as a love story.
I agree with you, actually.
Okay?
I hadn't really thought about that, but now just with a little quick thinking, I can see how you could rationalize that.
It'd be like saying Can't Hardly Wait's a love story.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
right. There's nothing really.
It's a bunch of fucking teenagers that are horny.
Yeah, hormones
Like,
raging.
this is not a love story.
Yeah, I think the biggest one was just a coming of age, a simplistic
There you go.
age story.
Coming of age is
and it
better.
wasn't until later I rewatched it again last night and fell asleep while I was watching it. But there was an interesting theme that came out or not a theme, but just something I noticed that Edward has gone through that teenage years, obviously so many times as you see the cap and gown or the cap mosaic on their wall in their house. So he's obviously lived through high school 4 years, multiple times over 100 years. So like it's weird that she's having this coming of age story while he's like awkwardly guiding her. I don't know how else to see it that way, but it's weird that he's like pushing her along to be more advanced than she is, and he's 100 something years old. So he's gone through this a few times. But
I think calling it a love story is a
I would agree.
It's an insult to love stories. I mean, you take a movie like Braveheart, which is a classic love story, or a movie like A Beautiful Mind.
Casablanca.
Yeah, Casablanca. You've got these stories with love, which is not just lust. It's like two people that are actually going like against odds and like staying with each other through thick and thin and getting over obstacles and all that stuff. This right here is a story about two people that are just chemically attracted to each other.
Yeah, they just want to do it.
Yeah, they just want to do it.
Yeah, and
Pull quote.
I think I think we're just dancing around this question. So let's just talk about it. What is the theme, right? What is the theme of this movie? And I mean, it's whatever it is, it sucks, right? I mean, I think the theme is probably, to me, the very thinly veiled, I mean, so paper thinly veiled theme is, I guess, abstinence, right? And desire, I think, is kind of the thing that this is all about. I think the scene where, Pattinson and Stewart are kind of getting intimate alone in the bedroom for the first time, and he like has the freak out, and and they can't have sex because he freaks out, right? I mean, that's just like, I mean, damn, that was really on the nose as an abstinence metaphor.
Sure, yeah. I guess I would say this is a Romeo and Juliet retelling, and the theme is forbidden love. That's kind of what rises to the top for me as far as a theme.
Yeah,
and that's
I
actually
think,
a cool theme. I mean,
well,
it
is.
It's just not executed well. But Romeo and Juliet, classic.
I think I think abstinence and desire is basically the same.
It's
thing.
it's all
We're
one and the
saying
same.
thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of these poll quotes I got from one of the reviews was, "I've had mosquito bites that were more passionate than this undead, unrequited, and altogether unfun pseudo-romantic riff on Romeo and Juliet."
Oh,
So
there you go, Romeo and Juliet.
So it's funny that you mentioned the Romeo and Juliet thing, so I had to pull that quote out. But it is interesting that they have this desire where it's same Romeo and Juliet. She couldn't have this guy from a lower tier of class and humanity, so it's the exact same. She's of a different world. He's from obviously a different world. He's a vampire. So,
but can we talk about how it tries to be Romeo and Juliet, but it doesn't succeed? So Romeo and Juliet, the whole idea is it's the Montagues and the Capulets, and they cannot intermarry, right? I mean, these families. I've been a long time since I've read or watched it. Is that the thing? Like it's forbidden to sort of cross
like,
the families.
Families to intermingle.
Yeah. Okay. So like the obstacle there is just that's what it is. You cannot intermarry, and they do, right? So they're going against it. What's the obstacle here again? It's not like he's always trying to not kill her, right? Am I missing something in what the obstacle is? Is it just because she's a human and he's a vampire and that's the only obstacle?
Yeah, it was weird because his attraction to her was something that was like instinctual to him, something he's never seen before. Like he couldn't read her mind. He couldn't of anybody in the entire room. He says that a couple times, I think, in the movie. But it was interesting that his attraction to her was something he's never seen before or he couldn't have. So it was something he's never been able to achieve. Like he's never been able to find somebody like that.
But like he's like madly attracted to her, right?
Yeah.
Like when the scent kind of blows across, and then he can't read her, so she's got that allure and that mystery. Yeah. Like he's sexually attracted to her, right? Am I right? I'm right, right?
Yes.
Okay, and she's sexually attracted to him, right?
I think
Obviously.
that's yes.
So what's the obstacle? I guess the obstacle is just the ostracization of the other vampires knowing she's a human.
Yeah,
Would that
Well,
be
it's
the
that, but I
yeah.
really do think it is that he like can not really restrain himself from like eating her. You know, I think that is like the main thing. I mean, going back to that scene where they're you know getting intimate and he just can't do it.
Okay. Well, that's a genuine obstacle then. I wasn't sure because I couldn't tell. Because he's also attracted to her, right?
Oh, obviously.
He's got
I mean,
like these two appetites. Are they conflicting with each other?
yes.
Awkwardly.
That's
Is
why
this like
he's
the
so-
Seinfeld episode where George conflicts like eating and sex and TV?
It's
and
the
it all-
famous meme where like people say it's just him acting like he has to poop and he can't, and it's just his facial expression the entire
Okay,
movie.
I haven't seen
So-
that.
This is that. What I have to point out though, what an unbelievable transition, and I damn it did not do my research on this because I forgot. But the guy in this movie from Seinfeld,
Oh yeah,
the guy that gets eaten by the rogue vampire gang, the
the
bald
real
guy,
nice neighbor guy who meets her in the
Yes.
cafe, and he's
yes, and he's the Vietnam vet.
He's the vet.
that Elaine hires to work for Peterman's catalog as a writer, and he writes brilliant copy, as I recall.
yeah.
So yes, that I took me like half an hour to I was like, who is this guy? And that's who he is. He's the guy from Seinfeld that worked for Peterman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess we can kind of close the loop on that, right? Like, we know the theme. I don't feel like they necessarily executed it well, but maybe you're giving me something with that sort of. He's always having to sort of sacrifice his appetite, as it were, to be with her. Which that's a kind of a cool concept.
I don't, and that's the thing. I kind of, as you said, the forbidden love theme. It's not a bad theme. It can be a really interesting theme, and I think the way you just put it there, I don't think it's terrible. Now, the way the characters are written and the dialogue is pretty terrible, and I want to call out a couple of prime examples here in a minute.
I can't wait. I've got some too.
But,
Oh yes.
but yeah,
Grizz, did you have another theme that you?
No,
wanna
I thought
throw?
it was the
Okay.
coming of age. And
Oh,
you
yeah,
guys
that's
hit
right,
it
you
on
said,
you guys hit it on a whole nother level, which is great.
gosh, where do we go from here?
Can I
Jeez.
just say a couple things I liked about it?
Yeah, sure. Let's do it. And I want to pile on. Let's go.
I'm just going to
Let's
throw
go.
a few out there. And this is simple, but I loved the Pacific Northwest setting. It
Agree.
was beautiful. There were some
Agree.
shots of the vistas and the valleys in there. And I know that it weren't really heavy on the blue filter, but I thought it really helped the movie, especially because of the paleness of the vampires and everything. I will defer to Grizz. He probably has more informed thoughts about that, and he probably is more of a critic. But I'll just say this, as not a lens snob, and I mean that in a good way. I loved it. I loved the look and feel. I loved the Pacific Northwest. I loved how simple the story was. Very, very simple. We talked about Tommy Boy being like a just, this is the story, right? To me, Twilight was like, these two people fall in love. Let's see where we go from here. Simple story. I can get down with that. Not that I don't like complicated stories, but I can appreciate a good simple story.
With the cinematography, I think the blue filter was very extreme, but they used it in an interesting way. I did not look up who shot this or what other work they'd done.
Roger Deakins.
Yeah, right. But it's interesting. It was a very low budget for this kind of a film, 37 mil. So it's not like they couldn't have done things, but they definitely took creative liberties. The scenery was unreal. I will say that. Like they went like big budget, like set piece to set piece. Like they looked for very specific looks. Maybe that was pulled from the book so they could pull like a more exaggerated scenery, like the sweeping landscapes and going from Arizona to PNW back to Arizona to, all over the place. But yeah, the blue tint was interesting. But the only reason I think that was because they went so heavy with the opposite color scheme. So they had the Twizzlers showed up a bunch. I don't know if that was a sponsor for the movie, but it kept popping up. But it was this bright blood red treat that the kids were eating, which was interesting. The truck was bright orange or reddish. So it was complete opposite. So you see all these things and they took those creative liberties and then they kind of popped them in. The movie actually got weirdly warmer as the movie went on. But I think that was maybe naturally because they were kind of filling in more characters. But
Did you refer to the Pacific Northwest as the PNW?
Yes. PNW?
You're so cool. Is
that
that
not
what it's
normal?
called? I've never heard that.
It sounds a little pretentious. I'm not going to lie.
Oh, wow. Oh, okay. Well, I'm pretentious as it can be then.
Also, I'll say I loved the idea of just the whole idea of vampires trying to fit into society and be good and like be these good vampires.
I agree,
The Cullen
agree.
family was interesting to me.
Now, see, and that actually caught me a little off guard when I watched this movie. I assumed that the Cullen family were going to be kind of the the bad guys, the antagonists, and that Pattinson was going to be, coming to loggerheads with them, and they were going to be ultimately the bad guys. And I think that actually probably would have made the movie a lot better and a lot more interesting.
Let me add this: if the true villains would have actually been engaging and interesting, then no. But because the true villains were just like terrible, then I agree.
Yeah, they phoned in the villain for this for sure. But it was
really
I would have
bad.
loved to see more of the Cullen family and how do they live here long term? Like,
Yeah, Peter Facinelli was. I really liked him a lot. He's a very likable guy. Mike Dexter from Can't Hardly Wait.
Right. Also, do you guys remember the TV show on Fox, Fastlane, by any chance? Bill Bellamy, Peter Facinelli. It was kind of like cool cops and Ferraris. I think it was in L.A., flying around, saving attractive women.
I believe you.
Doing drugs. It was on right after Party of Five, I think. Yeah.
I got nothing.
Did you watch Party of Five?
Oh, hell yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, Jennifer Love Hewitt, man. Come on.
I'm sorry. I never got into it. I was watching Friends during that time of my life.
So I feel like, guys, we're already in the midst of our classic segment, Flip the Script, right?
Oh yeah.
I mean, I guess I was kind of middling on this movie, so I'm flipping the script as, I'm not flipping it quite as much as you guys are. But I do want to pile on a little bit with a couple things I did like about that movie, and then let's shred this shit.
Okay.
So
sounds good.
I also agree. Landscape, P&W, absolutely beautiful. Sorry.
P&W.
Sorry.
There you
P&W.
go. There you go.
Sorry. I thought the blue and also the gray. There was so much gray in this movie, and I did think it added a lot to the atmosphere in a good way. I did kind of feel like maybe it was hiding some things sometimes, just some shots that weren't that good that just were made all the more atmospheric and beautiful by the filters. But nonetheless, good. I mean, that it helped, I think. And just atmosphere overall was pretty good. And I think ultimately what this movie did well was it did exactly what it set out to do, and it did it really, really well. And I know money is certainly not the only measure of the success of a film, but I mean, this movie made a shitload of money. And, because it knew what it wanted to do, it knew its audience, and it nailed it. And I, while the movie was not for me, I ultimately respect that. And I guess, and one other thing I'll just a little, add on here is, this is a good movie to watch with a woman. This movie, I probably wouldn't have enjoyed it less had I watched it by myself. I think my girlfriend helped me find some things to like in this movie, and if I would have just sat here bitter on my couch, I probably wouldn't have felt the same way.
Yeah, April wanted to watch it with me, and it just never lined up. I wonder if I would have, liked it more. I want to add on to that and say I had a note here when you were talking about the movie doing exactly what it set out to do. In other words, like it had an agenda. It fulfilled a purpose, and I had a note here that this movie is science, not art. So this movie was engineered for teenage girls in order to make a shit ton of money, and that's exactly what it did.
Yeah, 10x your investment from 40 to 400 something million is pretty damn good, but it was very formulaic.
It's like a Marvel movie. Those movies are all engineered.
Yep. And honestly, I'm almost curious to watch the rest of them, as bad as that sounds, to like see how they made it maybe better. I have no idea. I know they were shot differently and they looked different from this first film. But my curiosity is kind of peaked for the other films now. There's 4 more, so.
Oh god.
Oh geez, there's 4 more.
3 more. 3 more. Yeah,
no,
that's
there's
right. So
a part
4
1
total.
and 2.
There's 4 total.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. 1, 2, and 3, and then the third film was split into 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, and Nick, I'm gonna disagree with you in that I don't respect the movie for that. I don't respect movies that are science, not art, as it were. I need art. And so I think we both agree that is what the movie is, but I think I probably deduct more from a movie than you do, just fundamentally out of personal preference. So
yeah, I think that's very fair. And I will also say there are, by virtue of it being the kind of movie that it is, it does some things that almost kind of, and now I think we're transitioning to the bad.
Sorry, we kind of blew through the flip the script.
Yes. That kind of insult the audience in a way and insult their intelligence. So let me
Narration,
just
inner monologue narration.
Yes,
Googling.
Yes, I will give you one very basic example of that very early in the film, as part of the voiceover. My dad is chief of police. Shows dad wearing police uniform. It's like, yeah, we see that there, girl. Like it's and I think there's a lot of that. There's a lot of telling and showing in this movie just to make sure you're following along.
Do you know what 15-year-old girls do though?
Play with their phones the whole movie.
They journal and they write in their diaries, and it was literally like she's reading a diary, kind of.
Yeah,
which,
back to the formulaic thing. I think they did it on purpose to make it easier for young adults,
yeah,
I
easy.
guess,
No,
yeah.
I get it. They did it very deliberately. I'm not saying this was like a choice that was just like a stupid choice. I actually think it was probably a smart choice because they knew their audience.
I hated
now
it.
Right though, but
there's a version of Blade Runner with voiceover in there.
Oh, I know all about.
And,
I know all about that.
And
drama.
that's not okay.
Yeah. Right.
So that's all I'll say about that.
Yeah, us podcasters with 6 episodes behind us, we can say whatever we want, right? No.
Heck yeah, man.
Of course.
No, I think, some of those characters, one of the quotes that I pulled out was, "I'm Eric, your eyes and ears of this place. Anything you need, I'm your guide." And like, he just like literally as they're walking into school, he's like, "I'm the character to help you tell you about who this is and who this is." And it's like the classic.
What a goofy little character. He never even popped back up again, did he?
Yep. Weird.
Poor little guy.
Just quick in and out.
He popped in and out. And he wanted to run the feature on her for the school paper.
He had so much potential.
They were very kind to her for a first time weirdo coming back.
That's a note. That's a huge note that I've got.
Yeah.
Well, it was like, the thing that was kind of weird was like, everyone's like, she's so hot. Like, it's like, I mean, even if everyone finds her attractive, it was just kind of weird that, like you said, everyone just immediately is like, she's the coolest. Like, it was just a little off.
That was one of the biggest problems I had with this movie is the treatment of Bella.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was intentional, and I think that 15-year-old girls tracked with that because they're the center of their universe, right? And Bella was absolutely the center of this universe. Everybody loved her. Everybody cared about her. No one ever cared about what anyone else was thinking, feeling, or going through than Bella. The vampires, her friends, the townspeople, her family. She was so unrealistically held up on a pedestal in this movie. And I get it. She's the protagonist. They're the center of attention in a movie. But this movie it was an order of magnitude like more unrealistic than any other movie I've seen.
And the way they tried to make her like less perfect, like by making her clumsy, it was just
I can't dance.
It was so right. And the dance. There was literally a point where she just absolutely plummeted down a flight of stairs and like out a window and it was like a fucking Three Stooges skit. It was like it was very strange, but yeah, that was just funny how they tried to like make
a very
her
reoccurring item. Because I mean, the first scene you have her walking out of the house, she slips on the ice and falls flat on her ass, and it's pretty good.
Right. It's a little much. All right. Yeah. Let's keep tearing into it here.
Sure. I'll give you another one. Pacing and structure. This movie was all over the place. We just talked about a great 3-act movie, Tommy Boy, and this one I couldn't tell what was about to happen. And it's weird because I knew exactly what was going to happen. But like at the same time, I'm like, well, why is this scene here? This doesn't belong here. I don't feel compelled to keep going. It's just these two people just doting over each other and scene after scene after scene. And then you get sort of escalation of tension and then nothing happens. And then you get a weird ass baseball montage, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But yeah, the pacing and the structure, it's like somebody who has never written a screenplay before wrote this screenplay and didn't storyboard it.
Agree.
What do you guys think?
Agree. I would just say I think to me I think I said this to you earlier. Very little happened in this movie. I felt like, and it felt to me kind of like, and once again, I think this was intentional, and it's why I'm not going to shred this movie as bad as people might think. It felt like the first act kind of a movie, except it was a couple of hours long. So maybe that's kind of why not so much happened, because it was really only sort of one act of a bigger story. It was very
much one act. Yeah.
Yeah. So once again, I think that was intentional. Did it give a good viewing experience? That's debatable.
Yeah, it was enough to be intrigued. I think that was what I was kind of shocked by. The whole Jacob character, I forgot, because he's a massive, like, the whole three-way fight or love interest thing in the later films, from what I understand. It's Jacob, Edward, and Bella fighting for each other. So him not being as much in this film, I was kind of shocked by. I thought he was going to be more in this, but he's like the teaser throughout the whole film. He's popping in. he knows her from history or whatever when they were younger. And then at the end, you have like that teaser that he's going to come back, or they have this. It was interesting. I mean, at least it pulled my interest every so often. But yeah, this was a very boring movie. It just went scene to scene, and it like you said, it like built up, and then it just didn't go anywhere. Yeah. And then it went to the next scene and kind of built up, and then didn't go anywhere. It wasn't until like the third act, early in the third act, where it got really exciting when they're getting chased and they go through that, the big bad guys are kind of chasing after them, and there's actually some type of threat. So.
Just want to remind everybody you're listening to Critical Mess. I am Nick Honeywell. I'm here with Brian. I'm here with Grizz. We're talking Twilight. We're drinking 1792, and we are going to talk about quotes now. I want to do a few pull quotes. I know we all wrote a couple down that stuck out to us. I think, once again, I will just reiterate, I gave this movie a little bit of a weirdly high score because of some of these quotes, and so it's a little bit of an ironic high score. I'm going to give one example though that was intentionally funny and it landed for me. But I want, and you know what? I'm gonna start with that. So there was a scene, and forgive me, I'm not gonna remember exactly who it was. It was two of the lesser vampires, and they were sitting in a restaurant talking to each other, and one tells the other one that they can read minds, and I believe he's looking around the room, and he's like, money, sex, money, cat. That was pretty good.
That was good.
It gave me a nice chuckle, and I thought that was kind of the first intentionally funny moment of the movie. But let's talk about some of the lesser dialogue.
So I took offense to this one as a vegan. Edward says, "It's like a human living only on tofu. It keeps you strong, but never fully satisfied."
That's great.
I've never been more satisfied with food than after I became a vegan. So that's bullshit, Edward. Okay, it's a bad analogy. But really though, just full serious. I mean, that's just like bad. Right?
What about the comparison of him being a vegetarian, and then he explains that he eats only animals, and he just made that like it made sense.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it was weird. He says, "You are my life" to her. I mean, just like these platitudes that are just like bad and also unrealistic. I don't have a bunch of specific quotes written down. Those are the only ones I've got like verbatim.
Chris, anything that struck you specifically?
Butt crack Santa. Butt crack Santa. Do you guys remember that quick line?
Pardon?
The butt crack Santa?
I don't, but tell me all about it.
Like she gets to town and like her dad's eating at that little diner, and this random guy and the wife comes up, and he's like trying to see like, oh, do you not remember me? He's like, I was butt crack
That's
Santa.
the guy from Seinfeld, right?
Oh yeah,
is that
right?
who it was?
I think that was that guy.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But I was like, what was that? It was just so awkward. It was like, and he goes, everybody loves those little bottles, and then he walks away. I was like, what was he talking about? It was so weird. And then you never see them again. I mean,
yeah.
But it's stuff like that. And then what was the spider monkey comment? He's like, hold on, little spider monkey or something. As she jumps on his back and they fly through the forest together.
Yeah.
Give us some more, Nick. Do you have any
more?
Yeah,
I got a couple. When Pattinson is being tough guy, when he's he comes in the Volvo flying around the corner and kind of does the 180, kind of Mike Lowry style, aka Bad Boys 2.
Bad Boys
right?
2.
And so when that whole scene transpires, and
then he says something like, "I should have ripped their arms off," or "I should have ripped them to shreds." Or
well,
something.
he does say something like that. That wasn't the line I was gonna pick, but that one was bad too. But when they're just pulling off, and he's like, distract me, so I won't turn around. It's like, what a badass.
I mean, Robert Pattinson, I don't know what the story behind him in this movie was, but he's a good actor. He great. I love him in almost everything he's in. He was horrible in this movie, and I think it was the direction and dialogue. I don't think it was him.
I agree.
God,
I agree with all that.
Cringe.
Yeah, Pattinson is a legitimately good actor.
My single word for this entire movie was just awkward.
Cringe was mine. Yeah,
cringe.
Yep,
and
yep.
Yeah, awkward is like the word that came to mind. It just felt weird and like just so strange to like watch these people have this dialogue. It just didn't feel natural at all. Like you can tell maybe stuff was pulled from the books or something. It just didn't feel natural.
So I want to talk about a scene that epitomizes what you were just saying. Although before I do that, I want to throw one or two more quotes out.
Yes.
But we're going to talk about that though. So another quote that just absolutely killed me. You're my own personal brand of heroin. Ouch.
I almost wrote that one down.
Ooh, that one
I
burned.
do have that one down as well.
That one burned. And Brian, I think you were getting to it too. Just these platitudes, these I don't have the strength to stay away from you. I mean, good Lord.
He laid it on pretty thick.
I
through this
landed
whole
on
film.
It was laid
thick.
on pretty thick.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it.
Jeez. Anyway, back to what you were talking about, Grizz. The
Cringe.
kind of the ultra awkwardness. To me, that was epitomized the most. This was towards the beginning of the film, but I hope you two can remember this scene because to me it was probably the most salient scene in the whole movie. And it was the scene where Edward is sitting in class. It's like science class, and Bella comes in and they kind of meet for the first time, and there's the open seat next to Edward, right? And it's like he kind of starts like going back and forth. He kind of starts like convulsing a little bit, and he starts like, I mean, it seems like there's something really like kind of sexual going on, like.
And also he has to poop.
Yes,
or
the whole
something.
movie.
It's something. He's got to
Entire
take a
movie.
shit. He's got to, whatever it is. Like something's bothering him. Something's getting him the itch, right? And
If you ever rewatch this movie again in your life, I want you to watch his face and just imagine. That was the art direction. All right, now just pretend that you have to shit really, really bad, but you can't do it right
Trust
now.
us, it'll come off as sexy.
Yeah.
well, no, I took it as like very blatantly sexy. Like Robert, like act like you're climaxing.
Like that
in
was
your
his own
pants.
face.
Yes, act like you're climaxing for 60 seconds straight as she walks in, and just do it over and over again, man. Like that's the thing too. It just goes on and like, okay, it would be bad enough if like he just kind of did that little, that little whatever climax thing he does for like a second or two, but man, it just keeps going and going and going. And it is so awkward, so strange, and my girlfriend tells me has led to thousands of memes and
Oh yeah.
and lampooning. So the people know this scene, but holy shit, it is absolutely it is notable.
Yeah, and for a cold, wet, weathered place, why did the school have the fan in that room? Was it just incredibly hot after they just described this place as a cold, wet, cloudy place?
They don't have AC in the P&W, so they use fans.
Wow, listen to you, PW.
Got 'em.
Let's talk about the baseball scene.
Oh my God.
Let's
just get it out of the way.
We got to get it out of the
Thunderous
way.
baseball, yeah.
And just go, guys. Please.
Guys, how can a bat hitting a ball create a sound equivalent to thunder without the ball and the bat completely disintegrating? That makes no sense. Somebody who's not ever lived in this world and paid attention to physics wrote that.
What about the part where they were flying in the air and catching the balls and missing the balls? Like, did you miss that? Like,
well.
I don't think they were looking at, they were calling, Bill Nye the Science Guy to confirm all this stuff. But,
Well, no, because I think the movie's selling us that vampires can fly and jump, right? The movie's already selling us that, right? But the movie's not selling us the fact that it's not like the movie went, these vampires have a special kind of baseball and a special kind of bat.
Yeah, inanimate objects are violating the laws of physics.
Yes, thank you. Okay, that it's like that. That may seem really like, I bet if a 15-year-old girl was listening to this, which there aren't any, she would go, "Why do you care about that? There are vampires playing baseball. It's amazing." But no, it's like that took me out of it because that doesn't happen. And also, why did they have to wait for the thunder and lightning?
because nobody else would be outside and it'd be cloudy.
How did they know when the lightning and thunder were going to hit in order to sync it up with the
Weather Channel? I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, the weather was in 2008. I think they had it back then. I like their throwback jerseys. Those are pretty good from the 20s where they all came from. But
those they did look like from the 20s. Why baseball? Why was everybody in this movie
like
watching
kind of
baseball?
a bizarre, because baseball wasn't really hot in the zeitgeist, and I mean, it isn't now. It wasn't really in 2008. It was
again, I think it was just one of those from what I understand, it is not in the book. I saw one of the reviews that they said like there was just a thrown in scene there for. I have no idea why they picked baseball of all sports. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of baseball. It wasn't until my son got into it that I just absolutely love it now that I'm watching him play. But this game made no sense. Like them running around the bases, the ball flying through the woods, them running.
And we're talking, what an unsexy sport,
So
Couldn't we have
unsexy.
Yeah, I mean, give us some beach volleyball or something like that.
There was also no functional mechanism for that to be in the story. Like maybe if this was how they revealed that the vampires had these powers, like okay, at least it's there for a reason. We already knew the vampires could do all of these crazy superhero things, right? We didn't need this to exposit that to us, and it's like they chose to play this game of baseball. In this, why don't they eat their food? Well, they don't eat, I guess. Why don't they do any of the other things in their life to the superhero degree? Why do they just do baseball that way? You know what I mean? Like, why don't they just play baseball normal? It doesn't line up with how they live. I don't know. Nothing about it made any sense.
It's a great
It was
question.
like somebody wrote it when they were drunk and just wasn't thinking about it. Didn't vet it with anybody else. And
It almost
just
felt
put
like
it in the movie.
part of a different movie.
Yeah.
It was odd.
Sorry, guys. I just had to forgive me, but I just had to get all that out. That I fucking hated that scene. One of the worst scenes in all of cinema.
No, my notes on this scene were LOL, LOL, what the fuck? Guitar solo, LOL, when the bad vampires come, so hot.
Oh yeah, the guitar solo. I forgot about. There was like just the,
There was
just
a
the
yeah,
ripping of
just
the-
like
it was
a
awesome.
It was like a Kirk Hammett just ripping it. Yeah, right when the bad vampires came. And I think, that was, that's another point about that scene is that like it was like that scene. So when did that? It was about 2/3 through the movie,
Yeah, it was
probably,
past halfway,
right?
yeah.
Right. And it was like I think that was like the first like real conflict.
Yeah, it was
that happens in the whole
that was the
movie.
start of the third act to help explode it to the villains coming in, and then that immediately went into the road trip. They left right there, and they jumped in their Jeep and drove off, right?
What a strange kind of way to introduce like the antagonist so late in the film,
And it's
completely
not that
undeveloped.
They didn't introduce him. They teased him throughout the film. So I will say, like, they actually did tease him up at the very beginning. It was like that horror-ish scene where you could see the what was it, a guard or was it a policeman? Or I can't remember who it was that he chased through the woods and killed him. And that was the first murder of the town.
I guess they were alluding to it, but it was like you knew not, you didn't even see the
And then
person.
another person died,
know?
maybe at the end of the first act. So they were kind of teasing it throughout.
They
did those
teased it.
pseudo
That's
horror
fair.
moments, but that wasn't until you actually met them, figure out who the fuck they were. They're just another random covenant of vampires passing through town, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Clearly, the writers were much more interested in exploring the love between Bella and Edward than actually developing villains and
I
things like that.
guarantee those jerseys were all vintage, exact replicas of 1920 baseball outfits. I'm sure.
I'll give 'em
they
credit
had to
for
make
that.
sure that was correct.
I liked the dad.
He was good.
Yeah, I liked him a lot. He was the best.
Couldn't you have seen like a Carl Urban in that role? Kind of similar.
I would have loved Billy the Butcher in that role.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he would have been good. This is just a small note, but it really pissed me off that Claire de Lune was in this movie and that Pattinson was playing it. That's just such one of the greatest pieces of music ever written.
It is, but it's also over. It's
totally,
it's in every
totally,
movie.
completely agree with you. But
Amazing
just here,
piece, but it's in every
it
movie.
stung a little extra.
Yeah.
As-
Ocean's 11
as
should have
part
been the
of
last
this.
time it was in a movie, and then that's it. That movie has claimed that song, but no. I've got a couple rapid fires for you guys.
Let's do it.
I don't want this podcast to be 2 hours. I have barely even gotten into what I hate about it. I'm not going to say everything I hated about it. I'm just going to give you a couple rapid fires. Give me your quick reaction. Agree, disagree, or nuance it a little bit. So Robert Pattinson's performance, terrible. Have we already decided that? I mean, do
Strongly
you guys agree with that?
Terrible, not his fault.
Not his fault. Yep. Well, we hope so. In a town of 3,100, which Forks was 3,100 on the sign population.
Yeah, she said it out loud in the narration. Yeah.
I'm not buying the number of kids in the high school. There were 3,100 kids in that damn high school. Didn't make sense.
That was a lot of kids.
Thoughts?
Very small.
It could be
town.
one of those, like, sometimes the small towns.
Tri-county
they
or
have
something?
Yeah,
Okay.
it could be. But yeah, that's
Sure.
fair. That's fair.
Let's see. The character reactions. Edward tells Bella he can read people's minds in that cafe. And then he reads everyone's mind. And then Bella doesn't go, "Oh my God, what?" She just goes, she just like says something mundane. I don't even remember what she said. It was so uninteresting. She doesn't even bat an eye that he can do that. Don't you think if somebody came up to you and read everyone's minds, you would have some sort of a reaction?
Yeah, like let's be millionaires tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was this before or after she Googled the first time and started to learn more about the powers and the things?
This was earlier on.
It was early, wasn't it?
But still, like,
She Googled a couple times.
there was just the character
The
reactions
powers and stuff
Like
of
she
the
should
lore.
have been like somehow reacting to the fact that this being can do these things, like in a way that a human would react if they came across
she's also
somebody.
she's a very awkward person in this entire movie. But there was the scene where she like pulls up to her. Where'd she pull up to? And she sees like the police cars everywhere. Her dad's there. Edward's dad's there, and she's like, "Oh wow, what is going on here?" And she just says it awkwardly, but there's a lot of those lines.
In 2008, you use realistic CGI, or you don't use it, and that's not the case here. The CGI in this movie was horrible. I feel like they just should not have shown the fast running or any of the. There shouldn't be that middle ground. Just either show it or don't have the budget and don't show it, and I'm fine with that. Don't have this weird middle ground of bad CGI in 2008.
I agree.
What do you guys think of the visual effects?
It was rough, and it was actually beyond rough. It was pretty, like when he's sprinting through the forest with like her on her back and like jumping from tree to tree.
Just don't show it. Just don't show it.
It was pretty cringy. Yeah, it was stupid to begin with, even if it looked amazing.
2008 was an odd time. There were a lot of movies with unbelievable CGI, and then there were a lot of movies with just absolute shit CGI. I mean, was it one of the Pirates films, the Dead Man's Chest, I think, with Davy Jones? That was like, I still think that's one of the greatest examples of CGI for a villain.
And that was the
roughly the same year.
Yeah,
so like, there's like movies like that, and then you have this where you're like, Jesus, like this is just awful.
All right, I've got like 3 more. The very large group of teenagers that are going to randomly gang rape Bella in the parking lot. Is that how teenagers act these days?
I mean,
teenagers, they were on like a dock. They look like workers.
No, they were in a parking lot, and they were just going to like rape her.
Was that the implication?
Yeah, it was, because he was.
I mean,
like,
I guess what else would the implication be?
He says in the car, you have no idea how sick they are.
Yeah. You're right. That was the implication. I mean, what else could it be?
I was kind of hoping that Edward's going to go like absolute brutal and just like rip them all apart or something.
That would have been great.
Yeah, this town of 3100 just has this group of rapers just running around.
I would have bought it if it was one guy.
Yeah,
but it was a group of like 8 or 9 teenagers. Like, that was a little macabre.
It was off.
A couple more. Grizz, you might like this one. The cinematography was quite jarring. So I had written here, rotating Michael Bay pans to wide shot Dutch angles to super wide crane shots to high frame rate slow-mo to low frame rate slow-mo to fixed camera slow zooms to random mixtures of medium, wide, and close-ups, all in the same scene.
Seeing all that in the same movie, I've never been more uninterested and bored by a film. And you say all of that, and you're like, wow, that sounds fucking extreme. Like, that looks like a Michael Bay film. And it did not look like that. They just used them because they could use them, I guess. I have no idea.
Yeah.
It was awful.
Thank you. You said it. I feel like they were like, well, what kind of shot should we do? Let's just pick one out of a grab.
Or they knew the scene was super boring and they had to do something.
So they did a lot
hold
of
interest.
shaky cam too, just to make it more, edgy, I guess, of just talking scenes, 2 characters. Yeah, awful.
Last one, guys. Last one. And I know this was one that I think that was discussed a lot back when this came out, but I can't let it go. Okay. There are some great vampire movies out there. Matter of fact, one of the icebreakers could have been like, "What's your favorite vampire movie?" kind of deal, maybe.
Ooh,
but,
okay, no, let's do it right now.
Right now,
top vampire movie. Let's drop it.
Oh shit!
I mean, I know mine.
I mean, Blade.
Yeah, obviously.
I'd say Blade.
Yeah, thank you. I'm
You're
really glad we're on the same page.
Okay, good.
Let's continue.
Good. Okay. But I have an issue, and I know that vampire lore, no one owns it. No one owns that IP. It's a thing. It's like elves, right? Tolkien's elves are different from someone else's elves. It's just it's a type of thing. It's not but you got to follow some rules here. And I don't want to even say it that way. You don't have to follow rules. You just need to make a vampire or make it something else. And you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but they really removed a bunch of constraints of vampires and added a bunch of things just in service of the plot. It's like they had this plot and they go, okay, how can we make these vampires like sexy, or how can we make them do whatever they want to do? So they've got super speed. It's like, okay, that's not really what vampires are known for, but I can buy it, I guess. But they sparkle, right, instead of like being consumed by the sun. So that's a huge difference. They can read minds. Like, are you guys familiar with vampires being able to read minds?
I think it was interesting that they each had different powers. They noted on that, like when him and the big bad at the end were in that ballet studio, and he's sitting there like choking him, like the villain's choking out Edward, and he's like, "Oh, you are very fast, but you're not strong like the others." I thought that was interesting that like they all have different takes on. One can read minds, one can be super fast, and they even said that he was super fast in baseball.
So they're like the Avengers, but that's not a vampires thing either. Where vampires,
no, it's not. But I think they took liberties, and
they
I think that was their gamble, I guess, of just trying different things and trying to open up the world of vampires, if you will.
Tree climbing, long jumping, and visions. Like I don't know, this list of things that they can do.
Can we just talk about for 1 second? They literally sparkle. I just had a hard time. I mean, we're trying to appeal to teen girls, and they're like, let's just make Pattinson literally
let's just bedazzle
sparkle. Let's bedazzle the shit out of him. and it worked.
Yep.
It worked so well, you know?
Yeah, there you go, guys. Those are my big things. I mean, it's just, come on, give me something here.
I've got just a couple rapid fires, just to pile on here. Okay. Who's got the best character arc in this movie? Good luck.
I had a note that Pattinson, Bella and Edward have zero character arc whatsoever. And I think it's an Act 1 movie, like you said. So I have no answer to that.
Her dad? I have no idea. I don't know if anybody had character arcs in this. It did feel like a teaser for the other films.
I was going to go with the guy from Seinfeld.
Yeah.
I feel like, he started off fun. He made a good joke.
Yeah.
Then he got in a real serious situation, and then he got murdered by some vampires. And I just felt it kind of came,
Full
did
circle.
kind of a 180. It was fun.
Did the sister hate Bella at the end like she did at the beginning? Or did she come around?
The sister. All right, so I need to ask about that.
Or the
'cause
girlfriend?
There was the end scene where they're at the dance at the prom, and then it slowly zooms back, and then it shows up in the rafters. It shows that blonde girl, and she's like pseudo crying, and then she walks slowly away with like a smirk on her face, and then the movie ends. So I don't know. Was that one of the family members?
No, she was one of the three bad guys.
Yeah, and what
she was?
She was the one that left the one footprint and the one patch of
Right.
dirt, but no other footprints on the entire dirt path she was running on.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sure that's a
Remember, the police
character.
found one footprint.
Yeah, I'm sure that was a character from the books or something like that like teased it to the next films.
No,
but-
I'm not talking about her. I'm talking about the she's either the sister. She's one of the ones that lives with them, and she hates Bella.
Yeah, okay.
I was trying to help.
Victoria.
Victoria.
Short
Okay.
dark hair?
Yeah.
No, not the short
no,
dark
the other
hair.
one.
Yeah.
The other one.
The other one hated Bella. If she liked Bella at the end, that would be my answer. But I don't think she liked Bella at the end, so that's not my answer.
And that was such a strange ending. Like my final note was like, who the hell is this person and why do I care?
There
Like
were a
she
lot
was
of
in the movie for 2
characters
seconds.
in
I don't
the
even.
family, and like I got lost once that, but I'm
Well, they
sure
didn't-
it's tied to the books, and it's
It
just
probably
like a Marvel,
is.
It's like a formulaic Marvel movie. It just ties into the next. Jacob being like a tease throughout, he's going to be a bigger character, obviously, and then.
But you can't expect that I've read the book and that I know who this person is. You know?
they went after a very specific audience, and I think.
Yeah.
They knew
I mean,
that, so.
once again, I mean,
You should. By the way, I'm just going to say this: you should never have to have read a book to appreciate a movie.
Never.
I'm just going to say that. That's a rule of the cosmos.
no one should disagree with that.
Yeah.
All right, and that's probably the most important rapid fire question we're going to get to. I mean, are we on Team Edward or are we on Team Jacob?
A Team Edward, 100%.
Yeah,
I mean,
he had
come
a
on.
much larger piece in this film. I don't think Jacob was in this much. I was actually shocked by how little he was in this film.
I was shocked by his hair
Yeah.
Yeah,
because I had never seen that. Because once again, I hadn't seen the movies. I didn't really. I had seen the guy before many times because he was very famous.
Yeah.
He's still is he still famous? It
No,
doesn't
he's
seem-
not famous
Yeah, it doesn't
anymore.
seem
Taylor
like
Lautner.
it. Yeah, Taylor
he was,
Lautner.
He was
yeah.
famous from 2008 to 2014.
Right after these films, he tried a few like quick, box office movies, and they just all flopped one after another. So sadly, no.
Yeah, he just. I mean, he looked like Jay from Jay and Silent Bob.
Do
it
we
was
say that
like
he had the
Yeah,
best,
he had the mold.
Should
Yeah.
we say he had the best acting in this film?
He wasn't bad. To
Honestly?
be honest, he wasn't bad, and he's not a great actor.
No.
But I think that he fit the part.
Yeah.
No, I still think the dad was the best.
Yeah,
But,
he was pretty good.
yeah, he was legitimately not bad. He was decent.
Any longer, and I think I'd feel bad shitting on this movie more. So
I will say that I really, really, really wanted to like this movie because I really, really, really wanted to argue with you, especially Grizz.
my score was the lowest out of all you.
I know. But we basically had the same score though. And
Yeah.
so I actually, full disclosure, and I remember the first time I watched it, I remember enjoying it more than this time. So I really did not want to hate this movie, but when it came down to it, it's just a poorly made movie. And I had in my original note that I didn't read yet, but I had written down, I don't think a movie should be made for a specific audience. I think a movie should be made, right? It shouldn't be pandering. That's why I hate Christian movies and faith-based movies, because they're literally made for an audience. Like, just make a movie. Make the movie you want to make, and the audience will come. And I think this movie was first made for an audience, and then everything else came from that.
Yeah, I think that's a great closing thought. Actually, I don't know if you had more
Nice work, Brian.
to add there, but that's a good. I think that was very well stated. Grizz, do you have any kind of closing thoughts or words of wisdom for this vigorous discussion?
Man, this movie was rough. I don't know. My closing thoughts are just really I remember hating this movie when it first came out, and the first time I watched it, I don't know if it grew on me, maybe a tiny bit. It was just funny to watch. But now I still am kind of intrigued to see if the other ones got better. I don't know if they did. I haven't looked at the ratings of the other films, but I don't know if I have it in me to watch 3 more of these.
Yeah, I definitely don't have it in me to watch 3 more of these. Maybe like a super cut of like all
a
3
quick,
in like 45 minutes.
15, 20
I
minutes.
might be able to handle that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so for me, I rated this movie higher than you guys did. I agree, it was not a good, especially from a critical standpoint. It was pretty terrible. It was pretty terrible. But I got a lot of ironic enjoyment out of this movie, and I got a little bit of intentional enjoyment out of this movie. And yeah, I think I was it was just kind of like, a candy bar or, or popcorn or just very little substance, but some weird enjoyment. It kind of, for some reason, I kind of kept drawing a parallel to something like 50 Shades of Grey, right? It's just, it's kind of trash, and it kind of knows it's trash, right? And I kind of respect that in a weird way, I guess. And I know Brian.
Going back to the comment I said at the beginning, I think that if this movie was a standalone movie, Twilight, it's just that movie. That's the whole universe, is that movie. It could be more of a cult classic, more of a campy, just kind of like trash movie. But it's like, I don't think the movie was trying to do that. I think it was like trying to be like this, like amazing, series or whatever. So I am tracking with you, and I think that like I said before, I did not hate the movie, and if you had to tell me right now that I had to watch the movie again, I would be like, okay, that's fine. Like, I'll enjoy, you know what I mean? Like I'll enjoy at least what I see.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I also, my score was also a little bit higher because, as we talked about a little bit earlier, the movie set out to do exactly what it set out to do, or it accomplished exactly what it set out to do. And I know that we differ a little bit on, whether that should add points or detract points. But in my opinion, I think that because it accomplished its goal, that adds points for me. So anyways, clearly not a great movie, a watchable movie, a watchable trashy movie. But, I'm a sick part of me is kind of happy I watched it. And an even sicker part of me kind of wants to see the next one. But it's once again, a very sick part.
Go for it, man.
Yeah.
I'll say this, my very final thought of the movie, and it's the biggest sin that this movie commits. The song that starts playing on the closing credits.
Oh, yeah, Radiohead.
Fucking Two Step by Radiohead.
Yeah. I don't know how they got that in
If
there.
Tom York was dead, he'd be rolling in his grave. I mean, God
How much do you think they paid him for that out of that $37 million
I don't
budget?
know. I think that was probably deals done by record labels, even though that was released on an independent. Anyway, I love Radiohead, my favorite band of all time, and for that song to be at the end, I just was like,
it actually did blow me away because I'm a huge Radiohead fan, and it's just funny that
I didn't know you loved Radiohead.
I mean, I just loved listening to them back. My brother kind of got me onto them early on. I haven't listened to them in a while, but that I did notice that being the closing.
That just hit me.
Credits.
I just was like, what?
Yeah,
like Radiohead? Hello? Anyway, final thought.
Yeah, I think that, I have deep respect for Radiohead also, and I think that's great to call out because you're absolutely right. That was jarring.
Very jarring.
It was jarring. All right, so join us next time on Critical Mess, where we are going to be talking about Armageddon. Oh, yeah. We're going to be talking Michael Bay. We're going to be talking Things Go Boom.
Another movie that I feel like a lot of 15-year-old girls loved. I remember seeing it in a row.
I think a lot of 15-year-olds, period.
I think it was like, I remember we took up the entire row, and it was like all 15-year-old couples. It was like a date movie. We were all just there with our girlfriends. Yeah.
It's like a 2.5-hour music video.
It is.
I'm freaking hyped for this one. I love seeing that. I can't wait to rewatch it.
I can't wait.
Well, we're going to rap about it next time. So, all right, you listeners, you are all the best. If you made it this far, you should be considered for sainthood. We love you. We hope you keep listening. And
give us a rating.
Yeah, and please, yes, give us a rating.
Could, like a fucking 1-star rating. I don't care.
Yeah,
I just want to read something.
Just give us something. Yeah.
Write something there.
I think, didn't we say if we got 10 ratings, we were going to do the next episode
naked,
buck naked.
Yeah, buck naked,
fully nude. So
including producer Ben in the back. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh well. So, and here's the thing: there won't be video, but
you'll be able to tell.
Right. You will feel that tension.
We'll have our laptops like on our laps.
Yeah.
Where they
right.
belong.
Just covering just enough. So yeah, if y'all want to hear that, leave a rating, leave a comment. We would love it. Yes, thank you all again. Thank you for listening. We love you all, and we will see you all next time.
See ya.
Later, guys.